tonight's Izzy, Mant.
Thank you, hello. So I'm Izzy, and I've got resting polite face. It's quite offensive, I think, actually, for people to judge me just based on how I look, you know. Samantha Cameron's doing Halloween as Theresa May. It's not good. It's not good. People have always said things to me, right? Like, oh, you don't swear, do you? Well, I bet you were head girl at school. Well, I fucking wasn't, fuckers. All right? If you must know, I was only a senior fucking prefect. I stick it to the man, right? Since things have opened up, I've been on 3 political marches. I say marches. One of them was more of a sort of Islington Labour Party cocktail fundraiser, but you get the idea. It was very much liberté, égalité, canapé. Does anyone here have a type and kind of wish that wasn't your type? I'm getting a few blank faces here. Okay, so my type, unfortunately, seems to be the kind of man... Well, there's my first mistake. Laugh of recognition from the Aussie ladies here. We'll come to that. It seems to be the kind of man who you might call brilliant but difficult. And I think the problem is I quite like the idea of myself as somebody who falls for someone brilliant but difficult, as opposed to, you know, the other type of man, easygoing but stupid. Just a bit of banter, lads, still with it. Actually, look, I do want to say to all the men in the room, obviously that's a joke. I realise there's more than 2 types of men. There's loads of types of men. I've made a list. So we've got brilliant but difficult, easygoing but stupid, you know those ones. Boring but local. Yeah. Then we've got old but grateful. Won't reply to any of my messages, too busy with work apparently, but President of Ukraine. Then we've got the ones that kind of start out well but go downhill. So we've got hot but Tory cabinet minister. Yeah. Oh, people are actually feeling nauseous. Then we've got perfect but fictional character in a film. I like this one. Favourite pastime is cunnilingus. Yeah. But real favourite pastime is telling every single woman he meets, my favourite pastime is cunnilingus. This one is very common in East London. Has podcast idea. But will never have podcast. And finally, we have rich but Elon Musk. So that's all the types of men, I hope. All the men here now feel represented. I mean, all this fuss we get at the moment about, like, who's allowed to use which loos, right? If you're not on my list, you don't use the gents. It's simple, right? So yeah, that's all the types of men. So my type, brilliant but difficult. I went out with a guy who was like this, and he was very intellectual. Like, you know that expression that people use where they say that someone inhales books? Well, this guy, it was like he injected books right into his veins, particularly ones with female protagonists. He was a heroin addict. I always use that one to test whether people like jokes or not. And you do like jokes, it turns out. Good, I like you. He was also very creative and very romantic. So get this, he wrote me a sonnet and a piano sonata. Yeah, I mean, that really raised the bar for romantic gestures. Like, now I won't even let someone finger me till they've written me a novel and an opera. Haven't had sex for fucking ages. Because, you know, before this I was getting wall-to-wall boring but local backyards. So. Anyway, this guy was difficult as well. So he was very jealous. Like, when we first got together, he kept asking me to buy myself a new bed because he didn't like the idea that my current bed, shall we say, has a past. Yeah, I mean, it probably didn't help that I'd carved all the names of my ex-lovers into the bed head, but yeah. So I did see sense eventually, and I broke up with that guy. But here's what I did. I used the classic kind breakup line. I said, I think we just work better as friends. I didn't want to be friends. I should have said, I think we just work better as people who don't know each other. So, yeah. So I admit, I can be a bit too polite sometimes, but I'm quite rude as well. Like, I go to both extremes, and I think this is because of my upbringing and my parents, right? Because on the one side, my mum is very British, very middle class, like so much so she's one of those people who gets slightly annoyed by anything American, right? So I see her kind of twitching if she hears someone say, yeah, okay, I mean, you'll enjoy this bit, Americans in the front row. So if you were gonna go and if you wanted some coffee, what would you say to the... But what's the first part of that sentence?
Oh, can I please get?
Can I please get? That's what would get my mum going. She'd be like, no. You can't say, I'm going to get a coffee. You're going to say, I'm going to have a tea, right? That's where my mum's at, right? So the other day on my mum's Netflix, the film LA Confidential came up. She decided to believe it was a French film pronounced La Confidentielle. That's my mum with American stuff, right? But on the other side, my dad was an Aussie bloke. Yeah, g'day. And this led to quite a mixed-up childhood for me because, like, one day my nursery school teacher had to call up my parents at home and tell them that their little girl had very politely put up her hand and asked if she could go and take a shit. Yeah. And my dad was like, proud of you, mate. That's what I call it. And my mum was like, Izzy, you don't go around telling people you're going to take a shit. It's have a shit. Not long after that, it occurred to me to ask my mum, what class is Daddy? I was very sociologically aware 5-year-old. And she said, what class is Daddy? Well, he's Australian. Like that's an answer. Like it goes upper class, middle class, working class, criminal underclass, Australian. So, yeah, but, you know, with trying to escape my mum's influence, I'm trying to be less of a perfectionist. So I'm trying to prove that I'm not a perfectionist. So, for example, if I tidy my flat, I'll just leave one little messy area just to prove that I'm not a perfectionist. And I'm taking the same approach with my vulva. So that's nice. Okay, now I've grossed you out, I'm going to leave you. But I'm just going to leave you with a little life lesson from my Aussie dad. You'll enjoy this. So I think if you ever want to try and kind of strike the right balance between being too polite and being too aggressive, what you need to do is channel your inner Aussie dad, right? I think everyone's got one of these. I'm sure you've got one. And I'm talking about a kind of affectionate, sweary directness. And the best example is one time when I was younger, I heard my dad saying goodbye to somebody at the front door. And I heard him use this beautiful phrase. He said, "You're a bastard, but I like ya." And I thought, that's so beautiful. He can express his feelings in that way to the TV licensing woman, you know? I'm Izzy Mant. You've been lovely.
Izzy Mant, ladies and gentlemen. Izzy Mant. Well done, Izzy. Enjoyed that. Good stuff.